Okay.
We'll wait
So,
for a few.
hello
No,
everyone.
no.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Tisha,
yeah,
just wait
sure,
a
sure, sure.
minute. Like once like a few people join in, then we can start. Yeah. Okay. I think we can begin. Uh, a very good evening to everybody in the audience here today, and my enthusiastic batch of interns at Atha. We bring to you a webinar on boundaries, which is a very important step in self care and something that a lot of us struggle with. Some of us are not even aware of what boundaries consist of. So all in all, I think it's a very essential step while taking care of yourself. Today here we have Disha, Preksha, Moshmi, and Dr. Avanti speaking on the topic of boundaries. They have created some amazing insights into the topic and trying to present them as beautifully as they can. And I'm sure that they will be uh, very confident while sharing them. So, first we have Disha talking about boundaries. I think you all will start by introducing your overview and then begin. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, go
fine.
on, Disha.
So, hello everyone. This is Disha Mangwani, and currently I'm interning with Atha, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity they have given us. So, this is like my first webinar ever, which I'm going to do. So, yeah, let's begin. Um, so, let's first talk about what are boundaries. So, it is anything that creates a border which is considered a boundary. It's basically like creating a line within, or creating a line or limit within something or within ourselves. So personal boundaries are basically guidelines or norms or restrictions that a person establishes to define what is reasonable and what is safe, or else any permissible behavior towards them, as well as how they will react when someone goes beyond that limit. So these are basically these establishes likes and dislikes as well as the limits on how close one will allow others to get into themselves, uh, which means basically it you can say it defines a person. Yeah. So um, good and healthy relationships require boundaries, and it takes skills and practice to establish healthy boundaries. So let us see, like, I mean, for example, I'll share one example right now. So there's this friend. I mean, there are two friends. They are talking. They are having some random conversation, and then one friend comes up with a conversation where the other one got dumped, and the other person is not saying anything. I mean, he feels hurt, but he's like just going in the flow with that other friend and not standing up for himself. So this is where he is having unhealthy boundary. So this is something we need to take care of. We need to stand for ourselves, and we need to inhibit healthy boundaries in our lives so that we can have a good peaceful life. So let us understand why boundaries are important. So sorry. um, Boundaries are basically an essential part of self-care, and we should have healthy boundaries. So people who don't have boundaries, they feel drained or exploited, or they also feel that they are taken for granted, but which can result in rage, anger, or other negative feelings such as burnout in both our professional and personal relationships. So to avoid this, we should have better boundaries, and boundaries clearly define what is acceptable to us and what is not acceptable to us. And sometimes there are some things or behaviors which are not acceptable or inappropriate for us. In that case, we need to take care of ourselves uh, by making the line which should be clear when someone behaves in that way, and which doesn't feel like right to us. So there was one example given by Jay Shetty. I think you must be aware who is he. So he said that so he was like, suppose you are just performing your daily activities in your day, and then someone says something to you, but you are balanced, you maintain balance. Then another person comes in your life, I mean, at that moment, and does something to you, but you still remain calm and stay centered. And then there's one more person who is interrupting your work, and then still you are okay, I mean, he creates a issue, but still you are okay with it, like you are just going with the flow. But then it's all getting piled up, and then there is one more person who is just doing something and at that moment you just explode. Like you say some things which you don't have to say, you don't mean saying some things, but you, and later on you feel hurt, you feel like you feel a lot. So in that case, in that moment, we have to establish boundaries, we need to start making boundaries, we need to set boundaries in that moment or in that case. So once we have set better boundaries, next time this person or something which happens to us will, I mean, will just slide off, it won't matter us a lot, I mean, we have the limits within ourselves, like that. So this was one good example he gave, which I liked a lot. So that's why I thought I should share here. And yeah, so hence it is important to set boundaries because they are crucial for our well-being, um, or for any relationship as well as individuals we are involved with. And without clear limits we could feel exploited, as we have just seen. We could it could cause, I mean, it could cause us to shut down or withdraw. And this can affect our self-worth, self-esteem, or we can lack confidence, and it can basically affect our social relationships and personal relationships as well. So hence, to avoid this, effective communication to set boundaries is necessary, which will demonstrate that we respect the relationship we have with others. So now let us understand how to set better boundaries. First, before understanding how to set better boundaries, let us see the difference between unhealthy and healthy boundaries. Okay, so unhealthy boundaries are basically, I mean, they involve a disregard of your own feelings and wants or values, and this can include oversharing, or to another extent it can include that we are keeping everything to ourselves. So these are two common mistakes which people make in unhealthy boundaries. So um, to let, I mean, here you let another people make decisions for yourself, which makes you feel helpless and prevents you from taking charge of your own life. So it may look like you are disrespecting the values and beliefs of others, and of others who do not you agree with, and not saying no and not accepting others when others say no to you, and feeling like you are responsible for others feelings and behaviors, and feeling like you have to fix everything or save everything, and not taking consent is also a major issue. So hence, to avoid this, I mean, hence to not feel this way, we need to have healthy boundaries, and let's see what are they. So they are important in your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. They look different for each person and relationship, and they may change over time. So they are like two directional. They involve communicating your wants and needs in a relationship, and also respect others people's wants and needs in a relationship. So they may look like valuing your personal boundaries and not compromising them for someone else, saying no and accepting when others say no, knowing who you are and what you want, and communicating properly, like what you want from others, and not letting others define you. And it can also mean that respecting other values and beliefs while not compromising your own values and beliefs. Okay, so remember that people may push you back if you try to properly communicate your demands and or say no to some request while setting boundaries, because people are not acceptable for you to behave in this way. They'll take time, so they might hurt you, they might push you back, they might test your boundaries, but you have to stay clear, you have to stay consistent, and in some time they'll understand that this is how you are interacting with them and they'll get used to it. So don't worry. And now let's understand why it's hard to set boundaries. This will be taken by Preksha. So I now hand over to Preksha.
I think just like a tiny note. So everybody in the audience, if you have any questions, I'm sorry I forgot to add this in the beginning. If anybody has any questions regarding everything that we're talking about or anything that you have some insights upon, please feel free to add them or add your comments. We'll be very glad to hear about your insights and answer any of them. Uh, I think Disha, like the one point that I really took away from what you were saying was about, how it's important, like you before everybody else. I think that was what was shouting in my mind
Exactly.
while you were
Yes,
talking.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And the point
We need
about,
to.
yeah, go on, go
Yeah,
on.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
No, like I was just coming to the point that how it's important to constantly keep reinforcing what you were talking about, that eventually it gets set forth and everything. So I
Hmm.
think that is also a very important point, reinforcing and being persistent. So
Exactly.
yeah, that was my takeaway from what you said. Amazing. Riksha, over to you.
Good evening, everybody. I am Priksha. I'm currently interning at Atha. Thank you, Atha, for giving me this opportunity. So, my topic is why it is difficult to set boundaries. So, starting with a small example, like when a woman is raising his or her child, she always puts the wants and needs of the child first and then her own. So, similarly, at some point of our life, at some point of a time we feel that we feel guilty on ourselves because we worry that if we won't help, we will be not liked by others, and then that someone will leave us. We also believe that creating boundaries will harm our relationship. Thus we are not forceful about what is acceptable behaviors. So sometimes we also don't recognize our limits, which prevent us from developing boundaries or assume them. There is no flexibility, and that limits need to be rigid, which isn't the case every time. So thus, setting boundaries is not about not being selfish, but it is about a self care, which will help to enhance our well being. So, hence, it is important to understand that even if we care about other people, we are not accountable for them. We might to start saying no more frequently. Also, we must make a visible stand for something in which we believe strongly. So next we come to different types of boundaries. So first type is physical boundary. So it includes basic needs such as need to sleep, need to drink, as well as your comfort with contact. So for example, it is okay to say no to the people that you want some space or you don't want to be touched or you are tired and can't talk to them right now. Now, second type of boundary is emotional boundary. It means understanding how much emotion energy you can handle, knowing when to share, when not to share, and limiting emotional sharing with others who don't respond well. So, your example could be when you can't process more emotional information. So, you can say to the person that it's okay if we talk about this later, or is it or right now you are not in the state to have such conversation or to process this information. Third type of boundary is time boundary. We all know that time is very valuable. So setting time limits is crucial in us in any social situation, whether it is home, whether it is workplace, everywhere. It means you being aware of your priorities and allocating sufficient time to various parts of your life without overcommitting any of the work. So when you are really busy and your friends call out or someone calls to meet, you can say that I like. is it okay that if I stay only for an hour? Or you can say that I can't come you this weekend, we will catch up later on. The fourth type of boundaries, intellectual boundaries. It are the limits of your curiosity, ideas, and thought. They can be crossed when your opinions are suppressed or disrespected. So another aspect of intellectual boundaries is considering appropriateness of topic for discussion with the other person. So, for example, you can take that I would love to. You are at Thanksgiving party and someone talks about something which is not important in Thanksgiving. So you can say that it's okay if I would love to talk with you about this topic, but right now it is not a right time for sharing this information. So we will talk about it later. The last type of boundaries is boundaries at workplace. So easiest way to set the boundaries is start acting professionally. Your behavior should reflect the level of professionalism you want others to exhibit when dealing with you. So for example, your coworkers talk down to you in the meeting. Once the meeting is over, you can go up to them and you can explain why it is not acceptable and what you uh, need from them going forward. Now, what are the benefits when you set a boundaries for yourself? So, first benefit is like it will help you to build greater self-esteem. Second, it will help you to get clear about who you are, what are your wants, what are your values and belief system. It will also bring focus to yourself and your well-being. Next is it will enhance your mental health and emotional well-being. It will avoid burnouts because you already said you were already clear about what your needs were. So it will avoid your burnouts. Then it will develop independency, and the last is it will gain greater sense of identity. Now, I will be asking Moshmi to carry on the ahead.
I have an insight. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot in between.
Go
But
ahead.
while like the types of boundaries that you were talking about, I think one example that uh, I was seeing this video. I don't remember by whom it was, but there was this video where it's boundaries between friends. So there's this practice which I think I'm going to try and do it from the next time onwards that I'm talking to a friend. But picking up the phone, and if you're not in like a very good state of mind, just asking your friend if they are in a state of mind to actually listen to you. Like if they say yes, then you go ahead, dump everything that is there in your mind. But and it helps to, like, over time, I think that difference will come in where your friends actually also say that, oh no, I can't today, like I'm dealing with something of my own. But it's like, I think one practice that like that video came to my mind right now. So what are your views? Like, have you all done that before, or do you practice that? How do you practice setting of these boundaries in your life?
So
Hi,
for
can I say? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Diksha,
Disha,
go
go
ahead.
on. Yeah, go
so
on.
for me, it's same as you said. Like when I am really busy or when I am emotionally like I can't process any information, I just
Mhm.
tell to my friends that leave me alone. Even to my mom, like I really don't want to talk it right now. Just leave me alone for sometimes, and then later on, I just initiate the conversation later. That okay, now I'm ready to talk. Can we have some conversations? Yes, I do that.
That's really good. That's so good. Wow. I'm gonna try doing that. Yeah, Disha, go on.
Yeah, so I was saying that when I'm low, I mean, when I feel low or I want to spend time with myself, I'll say others that for some time, leave me alone. I mean, I can't say to my parents, I'm still learning that, but to friends, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so to friends, I do say, I mean, I need some time. I'll meet you tomorrow. I'll see you later on, like that. And then I
Oh,
engage
that's
in painting or journaling and stuff like that.
right. So like you have your
So
time cut out for your me time and everything. That's really good.
yeah, not
That's really, I
always, but
think.
sometimes yes.
Yeah, like I think it's a learning curve. We eventually do end up doing it.
Exactly.
So that's good. Over to you, Mashmi. I'm sorry I cut you off in middle. Go on.
No, no, that's totally fine. To be honest, even I would like to add on to that. So personally, very recently, I've adopted this habit of, saying no, and not being hesitant in saying no. So it is just something that I have been practicing, and it's not just about saying no, it is about being mindful about your needs, when you need to say a yes and when you need to say a no. So on that
Mashmi, could you
note,
please hold the mouthpiece close to your mouth so that we're able to hear you better?
yeah, I'm sorry. Am
Yeah,
I audible
go
now?
on. Yeah, you are. Go on.
Right. So, good evening, everyone. I am Mashmi Kodre. And firstly, I would like to thank Atta for giving me this opportunity to intern with them. And I'll be speaking on a few tips to set boundaries. So, the first tip we'll be looking at is visualizing and naming your limits. Making your boundaries concrete is the first and most crucial step in defining them because they seem invisible to us in our daily lives. Boundaries are frequently unclear and abstract. However, you may gain a lot more clarity about where you want to draw the line between you and the other people by picturing your limits and writing them down. The second tip I would bring here would be openly communicating your boundaries. So, setting limits in one's head without communicating them to the people in one's life is among the worst mistakes people make. People occasionally believe that you should be aware of their boundaries, but how would you know when you crossed a boundary if they didn't make it obvious where they drew the line? This may seem difficult and frightening, but once you're finished, it may seem incredibly relieving. According to Brian Brown, a social psychology researcher, clear is kind and unclear is unkind. You must express your boundaries once you are aware of them. So, here are a few examples of boundary setting statements. The first one is, this is not a topic I am willing to discuss right now. Second one is, I don't find those type of comments funny. The third tip I'd be talking about is reiterating and upholding your boundaries. Boundaries prevent you from extending yourself too far in terms of your mental and emotional health, just like an invisible perimeter fence around a yard prevents a dog from running into the street. However, the dog needs to be trained to stay within that limits. They must be aware of the boundaries of their yard. And this requires a lot of persistence, time, and patience. Human boundaries are just the same. The first time around, not everyone will recognize or respect your boundaries. When necessary, gently remind them of your needs while remaining firm in your decision. Remind them to respect your boundaries if they don't at first, but don't deviate from your original choice. The fourth point I would like to bring here would be, do not be afraid to say no. Have you ever seen a person who appeared to say yes to everything? People who are hesitant to say no frequently find themselves overwhelmed with obligations that they are unable to manage. As they desperately try to meet the demands of all the people and things they say yes to, and they frequently neglect their own needs. No is a very strong word. It may be identified by simple motions or facial expressions and has a strikingly similar sound across a wide range of languages. However, so many individuals today have been socialized to feel bad about saying no. In actuality, saying no is the same as setting a boundary. It is a display of bravery, self love, and control over your daily choices. The fifth point is taking time for yourself. Self care can seem selfish or even trivial in a fast paced environment. However, the research on self care is conclusive. Spending time by oneself is associated with increased self assurance, creativity, and emotional intelligence, and emotional stability over pressure. Even burnout can be prevented by it. The sixth, the last, and but not the least point is being assertive. If someone sets boundaries with assertiveness, it feels firm but kind to others. If they push in too aggressively, it feels harsh and punishing to others. Assertive language is clear and non negotiable, without blaming or threatening the recipient. These are the lines of Kennedy. You can be assertive by using I statements. Now, how to use I statements? Here's an example. I feel overwhelmed when I'm forced to go to a party because I do not like loud music. Another example would be I need some space to myself where I can think about this particular issue. Belmont says I statements show confidence and good boundary setting by expressing thoughts, feelings, and opinions without worrying about what others are thinking. I now hand over to Dr. Ravanti.
Thank you so much, Moshmi. Good evening, one and all. Thank you so much, Anuja ma'am, Asira ma'am, and Atha Psychotherapy for giving all of us this opportunity. Today, I'll be discussing about setting boundaries for these, for all of those kind of relationships that we all are dealing with. So, basically, we need to understand that man is a social animal. We need people around us. We need their company. But at the same time, each person needs his or her own space as well. The boundaries that people set depends on the culture and where from you come. Yes. So walls, fences, or even cell membranes. These are all examples of physical boundaries. But psychological boundaries are set by persons for themselves through their own experiences, beliefs, their thoughts, and even their own perceptions. So, boundaries are set in all kinds of relationships. May those be personal relationships, it can be family relationships, marital relationships, it can be along with your parents, friends, and even at the workplace. So, for our sound mental health, we need to set boundaries within ourselves. So, it can be as simple as setting wake up time and bedtime. It can be restricting our screen time so that many people are in a habit of there's some free time or they are getting bored. They just go on to Instagram or go on to Facebook posts and spend hours together. So the screen time also we need to restrict on. Also, we need to define our working hours, may that be for adults or that may be for young children as well. So, having your own personal space, that is the me time, the new term that people are using these days, the me time we need to have for our own privacy, and it is very important for you keep you in order to keep yourself sorted as well as stay very simple in life. Okay, even reading others' messages or writing letters to them or reading their letters or getting to know their passwords is is a kind of personal encroachment which not everyone would admire. Okay. Similarly, touching someone or hugging someone or even encroaching into their boundaries or tickling someone, be at home or even the workplace, that may not be acceptable every time. Now, first we need to start from ourselves, that is the personal boundaries that we discussed. Then comes the family. So, healthy boundaries are there in the family also. Family is an integral part of our lives. We are easily influenced by each other's behavior and they help us in developing our own self image as well as our own identity. But at times, these close relationships can also be very overwhelming. Yeah. So, understanding concerns about others, but communicating your own decision is the best thing that you can do, not getting influenced by others' remarks or comments. Yeah. Treating each family member with equality is also very important. Not getting dragged with each and every family argument is something that we need to be really mindful about. Sharing your sharing or not even sharing your personal belongings is another very important thing. Many a times people be, even not liking it, but they keep on giving their own belongings to someone, keep on sharing their belongings, but but at the back of mind, maybe they are getting frustrated because of this. Many a times it is observed that females in the family are taken for granted, and that is the reason why they experience burnouts and they are stressed out. So, in such situations, if personal and family boundaries are gracefully demarcated, everyone in the family can be at peace. In families, it is seen that when there are small children and they are now growing up, they are now adolescents, or now they are teenagers, parents are not able to accept and they are not willing to give them their own independence, and they are not able to respect their own privacies also. So parents need to acknowledge that they need to respect their teenagers private space, and not to invade in their own personal bubble as well. Okay. Similarly, in case of marital relationships also, these days we are seeing very commonly that marital relationships are getting very toxic. So, in order to rebuild these relationships with love and affection and intimacy, we need to set certain boundaries. They need to be very well defined also. So, maybe you can always say that I will not tolerate whatever you are lying about or cheating, or not calling each other names or belittling each other every now and then, or I won't engage with you in if you keep on drinking every now and then. Okay, something that is going beyond your boundary. Also, very important is that respecting each other's intimate needs is also um, a part of setting boundaries for these relationships. Now, there are workplace boundaries also, which we need to acknowledge. That is to identify your priorities, saying no to working on weekends or doing overtime, or um, enjoying your vacations guilt free is an important aspect, and also refusing things that are going beyond your moral ethics or your moral values, and all of those things which are making you feel uncomfortable. So we experience these boundaries in all sorts of relationships. Set these boundaries and respect others' boundaries also, so that these relationships flourish with maturity. Thank you very much.
I think that was a wonderful presentation by all. What comes across to me is important right now is that after having presented this topic, one like talking about family boundaries or talking about privacy settings in an Indian household is still like I'll take the freedom to say, liberty to say that it's a fairly new topic. Like I could see everybody smile because there are few, some few topics that are still very, oh my God, we should not be talking about it, sort still in Indian families. And boundaries, I think, is one of them. Like this concept of, oh, like kids also need boundaries might be very hard to digest. Like, what are your views on that? Like, what do you think?
Yes, very much. Like as I said, that boundaries come along with the cultures and where from you come. So there is
Exactly.
another thing that Western culture is different, the
Yeah,
Eastern culture is different, the way we are brought up is different. Yeah.
very.
So things depend. Like families like us, we from Indians, especially Indian families, they have a lot of parental influence, and
Very.
these days there is a lot of contradiction that is seen. That movies, other peers are exhibiting something different, and then children go on in a very comparative kind of a
Yeah.
mood. So it is difficult for parents to acknowledge these things also.
One of the important aspects, I think, when you said culture, one word that popped into my head was collectivistic culture and individualistic cultures. Like that stark difference about, how you function within families plays such an important role for,
Yes.
setting that space for yourself. Yeah, Disha, you were about to say
More
something.
in, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, go on, Avanti. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay. More important, communication is an integral part of boundaries. So,
Very.
in case, like, Many a times things go on in like, you should know what my boundaries are. Instead, you can always say that no, these are the limits. You can always be that much verbose, so things
Yeah,
become simplified instead of
very,
taking
very
the other
important.
person for granted.
Definitely. Very, very true. Go on, Disha.
Yeah, I was actually saying the same thing. I mean, usually these days, parents, I mean, they are not able to, adjust with the going on. I mean, they are not able to, change themselves because they were brought up in some kind of a way. Like, suppose if they were brought up in a restrictive environment, so this is what they think that children should be into restrictive environment only. But these days, I mean, it's not possible to keep everyone into restrictions. Somehow they will, I mean, do which might hurt themselves or I mean their parents. But yeah, that's what I was telling. So
I think
it's
slowly
time
and
that.
gradually. Yeah.
Mm.
Slowly and gradually, I think some amount of change is being observed. I feel it is something that takes a time to get instilled in your environment.
Yeah.
Also, while we're talking about this, anybody in the audience wishes to add any insights, has any questions, please feel free to use the comment section. We'll be glad to hear about what you think about it, as well as if you have any questions about it. Yeah, so Dr. Avanti, you mentioned one very important point about communicating. There's this, you should know about this, or this is very basic, you should understand. Whereas it might not be very basic in nature. So, like I mentioned, like persistently reinforcing that boundaries. I think an important part there I feel is uh, acknowledging when the boundary is actually established.
Yes, and
So,
also Anusha, one thing I would like to mention that boundaries, they come along with your own experiences also. They might be
yes.
associated with some kind of traumas also, some kind of
True.
past events that have happened, and then you set your own boundary. Maybe that is your own boundary, and it could be a real petty thing, that the other person would say you are thinking very highly of yourself. That can also be another remark over it. So
Definitely.
things are boundary is a very sensitive topic, and it could vary from person to
Yes.
person.
Definitely. I would like to ask you, like we'll be wrapping up soon, but what are some of the obstacles that you have faced while establishing boundaries in your personal life? Like, what are your experiences with establishing boundaries?
If you ask me personally, I would say that setting boundaries has not been a troublesome thing for me, because we all, maybe it might be with my friends, my family, my colleagues, I have been very vocal, and we have been in a very give and take kind of a relationship, like verbally, so
Right.
things have been pretty easy. So that's what we mentioned, that communication is more important. And if you, and saying no, if that is a no, that's a no. So things cannot go beyond that. So that is a simple way where you can define your own boundary.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that you did not have a lot of difficulties with that. What about the rest? What has been your experience?
So, so far, setting boundaries, the experience with that is, you come off as a mean person to your friends or your family acquaintances. So it's like she's saying no. So, okay, maybe she's being mean. She's having like these walls around her. Maybe she just, is so full of herself and all sorts of things. But I feel like once they are aware of the idea of boundaries, I think they too will, at some point agree and, have them themselves. So that is my experience about that.
I think adding to that, I have been called a private person so many times just because I deal with some of my issues by myself. And so many people have told me, oh, Anuja, you're a very private person, just because I have tried to, sort of set some boundaries. So yeah, just adding on to what Moshmi said. Thank you for sharing, Moshmi. Anybody else?
Yeah, even I would like to say, like, I used to have difficulties in saying no initially. Like I used to think that what others will think of me. I used to care a lot for others rather than myself. So I used to keep their values and beliefs first and rather than myself. So that is what I'm learning now. And I'm
Wow.
glad that I can say, I mean, I've started saying no, and I know where my limits are, what are my boundaries, so I can communicate them effectively, at least with friends.
Yeah.
At family, I mean, with parents, I am trying my best, but it will take time. Yeah,
I think it's a process, and I think it'll happen one day at a
exactly.
time.
Hmm.
So, thank you so much for that and lovely webinar that you guys put up. It was wonderful to hear your insights. I am glad that we could also have like a little discussion post it, and we could talk a little about our personal experiences, which I think gives the entire webinar that you presented like a good, like that star mark at the end of it. I think that was great. Thank you so much for being comfortable sharing it in front of people. And thank you so much for being so enthusiastic, coming up with the content, and being so active during this entire term of the internship. Also, I would like to thank Asira ma'am for giving this opportunity for all of us to come up here and talk about things. For any up like we constantly have these webinars, we constantly have these IGTVs, and they are very good way of like it sort of fulfills our vision of community reach and putting valuable information out there. We also treat the page like a very preventive prevention sort of ideology where people can use resources. But of course, having said that, if you have any severe issues, please understand that these webinars or these IGTV lives are not a replacement for therapy. So please keep sharing your support. If you have any questions or you need to get in touch with us, please feel free to I've put the email ID in the comment section. Please feel free to reach out to us, write to us. We'll be glad to reply and respond to your uh, I think questions or any lives that you want us to perform in the future. Yeah, we are also open to accepting any sort of ideas for webinars that you want us to come up with. So that is us wrapping up. Thank you so much, everybody who joined in. Thank you so much, everybody who performed. Thank you so much. I This is us signing off. Please subscribe to the channel, and
On behalf of all of us, Anuja, I would like to thank Atha, Asira ma'am, and you've been a wonderful host. Thank you very much, Anuja.
thank you so much, Dr. Avanti. It is our pleasure. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We come up with content, webinars like these to keep information out there alive. So, yeah, I'll be now ending the broadcast. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Good
Thank
evening.
you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.